Welcome. It is a couple of minutes past 4. Welcome to this session of Meet Oracle Masters. My name is Leon de Werker from Qualogy. I'm the host for this session. And we have with us our well-respected ex-colleague Menno Hoogendijk, working for Apex Development, who will present his top 10 favorite features in Apex 21.1, I think. Menno, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, it's going to be 21.1 and a little bit of all the features as well, combination.
Okay, good. Thank you. Before we start, Menno prefers to help, do the questions in the end. We have a Q&A section in Zoom that you can post your questions at, and we will go through them after the presentation of Menno. And also be aware of the sessions that are shown on the slide, that are some follow-up sessions in the Meet Oracle Masters track the next couple of weeks. Menno, before we start, I would like to do a poll, with your permission, to see how much experience we have in the group. So I will start the poll now. There we go. How many years of Apex experience do you have? So the answers are rolling in. Am I the only person seeing the answers, or are you also seeing the Menno?
No, I don't see the answers.
Okay, so we have 27 out of 27 voted. Share the results. So we have 4 people with less than 1 year experience, and as you can see, we have many people with many years of experience. Thank you for answering the poll for us. I will stop the polling and then give the floor to you, Menno.
Okay, thank you, Leon. I will start sharing my screen. So today I'm going to talk about my personal top 10 features, new features of Apex of the last 3 years, I would say. And Menno, I work for Oracle in the Oracle Apex development team, and doing that for the last 2 years. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually a new feature. It's brand new in my personal top 10, and it has to do with CSS variables. And this is due to in every Apex release, we upgrade the universal theme, and the 20.1 universal theme is the latest. And because we were able to say goodbye to Internet Explorer 11, we could use modern CSS features, and one of those features is CSS variables. And here you will see a small example. It always starts with -- and then the name of your variable, and you give it a value. And that's interesting because throughout your CSS, you can refer to these variables and pick up dynamically the value of those variables. And you don't need a pre-compiler, so this was able, you would be able to do this with less compiling or SAS, but now it's out of the box. So if we look at today's sample application, which I will log in again because I might run out of time. I'm running my local instance here on 21.1. And I've prepared an application. It's called my top 10. And as you see already, I'm using the universal theme. So if you go to Theme Roller, like most of you will know, you can select a few styles. If you want to change your application but don't want to use Theme Roller, that became much more easy in this release. So this is my first example with CSS variables. And I will first show the documentation about them. So we already know how to assign a value to them. And if we look here, you will see how to use it. So you can set the background color of a certain element and use that variable. And then I thought, how can I demo this? And then I thought, okay, we have a website in the Netherlands. It's very well known, I guess. And it's Rijksoverheid.nl or government.nl in English. And I wanted to recreate this application to mimic exactly what I see here on the screen, where you have your header, some kind of hero region, content, and spotlight. So I've done that. I have here my sample application. Let me remove this bar here. All right. And as you see, this looks a lot like Apex. Indeed, I did nothing else. It's all standard Apex components where I have my header, my navigation. This is a hero region with a list and a text field. Cards, I'm using cards, and I have my spotlight cards. But it's quite different. So we need to change some of the styles. And the way I did it is if I go and edit this page, and there it is. In my page, I've added some CSS. Well, I will edit now. So I will add some inline CSS. And this shows you how easy it is. So in my root of my document, which is the HTML element, I can override these variables. So I have a bunch of them. I just needed to find out which variables were used in which place, and I override the value. I've specified one color, blue color, that this website uses everywhere. So that's what I'm using, and I'm assigning that variable to other variables. That's also possible. Now, if I rerun this page, just with 39 lines of code, it already looks a lot better, right? You see the whole style that we had from this website. The only thing missing, I'd say, is this logo and the menu. The navigation should be on the right. So the only 2 lines of real CSS I wrote to change attributes is right here in the bottom. And if I enable them and save and reload my page, now you see in with what amount of just a small amount of code that you can mimic probably every website in the world using standard Apex components and a little bit of CSS variables. So that was my first demo. Now let's go back to my presentation and let's see what's on the 9th place. And that is the new code editor in the application builder that we added in the last release 20.2, which is the latest release so far yet, because 21.1 is not released yet. And every time I use it, I still like it very much. It's much better than the code mirror that we used to have before, because it has powerful stuff in it. For instance, has IntelliSense, which means it can detect what you actually want to execute. Validation, so is my code correct? No, it doesn't do it for PL SQL because PL SQL validation needs to happen inside the database. So we do it for you if you press that validation button here, but JavaScript is immediately validated. And all the syntax coloring is there, we do it for you. There's a command palette if you want to use extra options and preferences as developer. That's this toolbar right here at the right side, and all kinds of better accessibility features than CodeMirror used to have. So back to my presentation. The next feature, I can't show it right here, but I will go in the application itself. And I will look up a place where we actually use this code editor. And this is my sample. So let me see here. I have a bunch of code here. And it's code. Okay, it works, right? But I want to make it look a bit better. So the first thing I always want is everything lowercase. I don't want uppercase, but that's my personal preference and the standard within our team. So if you press F1, you will get this command palette where you can do extra things. And if you type lower, then you will see that you can transform everything to lowercase. And now another thing I don't like is that the indentation is not really what I was hoping for. So let's take these lines, and I can change the indentation by using my keyboard. I could even go here and then have two cursors open to fix that orientation, the indentation, like this. And all that stuff is really easy. So let's say I want indeed Apex debug, and I want to know what's in it. I use Control space, and it will find everything like the static, the constants in that package and all the methods. If you want other things, you can look at this menu, and this will be saved for you as your user preference. If you want to show line numbers, yes or no, by default, we will show them for you. And then you have the themes, so you can say, I want dark theme instead. You can change your indentation, stuff like that. And a minimap is by default on when you have a lot of code in there. If I put it on right now, you will see here a minimap of my code, but it's not very usable. So a big improvement there in user developer experience, I would say. If you do the same in JavaScript, it will do a bunch of other features. So it will read out the API that we have and use that for the IntelliSense. Let's see the next one. JavaScript templates. So this is new since 20.2 and not very well known. I think, well, you can use it inside cards. And my colleague John Snyder's posted a blog about it. But it's a client-side templating language. So what we used to do in Apex a lot is render HTML on the server and then send it to your browser. But the more new components like interactive grid and the cards region, on the server we render JSON, we send that to the client, and the client renders the HTML for us. And we always not really lacked a templating language, but was kind of limited because you could have placeholders for your page items. But we extended these templates with template directive. So you could say, I want to loop and an end loop. But first, let's see the simple one here, where you have Apex util.apply template, hello, and then some kind of substitution string. And if you pass that name substitution attribute, it will say hello world. The same applies here, where we say we want a list of fruits. It's an unordered list, and then we loop over each item of an array. And the array's name is referenced here, fruits. And then we create a list item for that actual value, banana, apple, orange, grape. And then we have to end that loop. And we could use this in all new region types we're going to introduce when needed. And this is useful if you, for instance, combine this with the Apex client-side model. It's all very well connected, and we will hope to show you more about this in future releases. But right now I have a simple demo, and this is gonna be the most difficult code I will show today. Where I thought, okay, maybe I was thinking of a region type that is currently not in Apex. And I think this is one that I found. It's an image list, and it displays itself like a masonry kind of images all connected. And this is where I use this new templating language. So if you will look at this page, what I've done here is created a plugin. So I'm getting my images from a REST data source. It's from the Unsplash website. And there I have photos from one certain collection. The collection ID I'm using is this ID, doesn't really matter. And what I'm emitting from the server is purely the image URL. And this is the column where to find that URL. So if you look at the plugin itself, that's the image list plugin that I've created for this purpose. It has a bunch of code. Here you can see that I indeed get the data in that AJAX function, where I open my query context and I'm using the region source. And all I'm emitting to the client, back to the client, is an array of image URLs. So for each row, I will get that URL value, and that's it. What I do next is with my JavaScript, and that's my image list.js. And I can download this file and show you the contents. And it's opening up, and there it is. So what I'm doing first is I define a new client-side template. I give it a name, an identifier. We'll call it image list. And it's basically what you've seen just in my presentation. Look at these, and then I use my first substitution. And then I will loop over an unordered list again. But this time I will show images. And I'm using that image URL as a source. Whenever I get the data, I will apply that template. So I will fill this template with actual data. So there I pass my placeholders. My image array is the results I get, because I will fetch my data using an AJAX callback. And the count is the length of the array. So this is just a simple example. It can be much more complicated. If you want to have infinite scrolling stuff, you can really connect it together with your client-side Apex model. But know that it's there, and know that we're going to use it much more in future releases. Number 7 is the export to Excel, which we added in 20.2. And it allows you to export to Excel natively without any external print server. And I think it's probably a preferred option instead of CSV, what currently is used a lot, because CSV is just a text file, comma separated. And Excel has native data types for numbers and dates. So the result, the experience for the end users will be much better. And we can maintain report formatting. So we can maintain, let's say, control breaks, highlights, stuff like that. And again, I will open my presentation, go to the next feature where I have just a simple interactive grid. It shows me everything from my employee data. And as you can see here, I have used the format mask, and we can immediately download this one as Excel. Let me open it up. So it has a few features that you don't get out of the box with CSV. All the column headers that you see here, you can immediately filter them, like changing the sort as well. The other thing you can do is to see that we will use actual dates. Because if you use filtering here, you will see that you can filter them by years. The salary looks like a currency, but in reality, it's a number. So what we try to do, if we have a Oracle format mask, to map it onto what we have in Excel, if it's available. So we try to do it as good as possible. If a format mask is not included in Excel whatsoever, we will change your column data type into a varchar column type to at least keep the display the same. Let me close this one. And now, if I have the other one, which has all the features applied. So here I have control breaks, I have aggregates, and I have highlight. Out of the box, all that information is maintained. Let's open this one up. And there you will see all your information again. Now, the only thing that changed right now is that your column headings are not filterable anymore because we have these rows and those are not part of your data. So that's why the column headings are not filterable anymore. But everything else, the aggregates and the highlights, they are maintained. We also made native PDF, but today I wanted to focus about Excel in particular. And there's another way how to get the result of any query that you have as Excel. And this is the code snippet for this purpose. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the Apex exec package. And the Apex exec package is a wrapper for all your queries. It can be a local database query or a REST data source or REST enabled SQL. And that's why we have this wrapper package for all query related functionality. So we open up from my local database, select star from AMP, and then I'm calling with that context the Apex data export API. I'm passing the context and I specify my format. Here it says PDF, but I will do Excel in this case. Then I have my export, which contains the actual blob itself and the MIME type and the file name. Because I open my context, I have to close it again and download the result, that export, to the client again. So almost the same result. This is just a basic select star from AMP. As you see, I don't have any formatting in place, stuff like that. But it will work for any query that you have. So it's a really convenient way. And because that export object has the blob file, you can decide what you do with it. Do you want to save it in the table? Do you want to send it as an email? You can all do this in a scheduler job with the Apex automation. It's all up to you. Number 6 is data loading. And this started, well, data loading is old already, but we started to improve this functionality in 90.1. And that's when we added it in SQL Workshop for you as developers. And what it allows you to do is upload any Excel file, CSV, XML, or JSON, and then transform that data, that file, into a relational table. And with that data, you can append, merge, or replace that data in a table that you choose. And because the API is powerful, we expose the Apex Data Parser API. And in 21.1, you will get something else, and that's for end users. So you will get the opportunity to create a data loading page and allow end users to upload their files in an application. Really easy. And to show you, I have to begin by explaining how you create such a data loading page for end users. I will focus on that today. So this is the page. I will go to it in a minute. But if you go to your shared components in your application, you will find here, like it was before, your data load definitions. But now you can create a new one. This button wasn't there before. Let's say we want to create a new one. How does it work? Before you can create a page like the data loading page itself, you need to have a data load definition. So you will have to specify what kind of data is uploaded by end users and where, in which table should it go to. And I will call this test. I will not create it, but I will go as far as I can. This data loading should go into an existing table. I could also choose for an Apex collection, and then it's temporary for the duration of your session. You can get to that data. But let's go to the AMP table. And this is the new thing. So your data load is really easy to set up because you have to give Apex a sample file. And I will choose a file. And let's use that export file that I've just run. And hit next. Now what Apex does in the background is analyze that Excel file and sees what kind of data is in there. So it knows that my first line contains the headers, and that's right. I see all the columns. The only thing I need to specify is indeed that my emp number is the primary key. And then I can create the data load and add the data load page to my application. And that's what I've done already. And then you will end up with a page like this. I did nothing else. It will look like this, where users can upload their data. So here I can choose a file again. Oh, well, let's make a change first to that file. So let's open up that export file and change the first name into Leon. Save this file. And now choose it as a source. It will immediately parse and upload the data. It's not inserted in my table yet because I can preview the results first. And I see, okay, the new value is going to be Leon. And I'm going to merge it into my emp table. So here I'm going to load the data. And all 14 rows have been processed. If I go back here to my employee region, I can immediately see that Leon is also present as a value here. So it indeed updated the table. No coding involved, nothing anymore. Just create your data loading definition, create the page, and it's all done. Let's go to number 5, the maps region. This is totally new in 21.1. And it's a map region. We had a kind of a plugin available. Now it's a native Apex component. And of course, it leveraged the Oracle spatial capabilities. And we use Mapbox.js to render the map in your browser. You don't need a license because it's based on Oracle Map Service. And that's where all the, let's say, the tiles come from for the background. And it works by adding layers. So layer you can see as a data source where you say, okay, I want to see these records onto my map. And you can add as many layers as you want. And the new map region has loads of attributes. So you can figure almost anything you want to do with a map. Let's hit this next feature. Here is my maps region, and it's not part of my application because we intend to release very soon a sample application for maps. So it's still in the works, but it's close to being completed, where you can see in many of our sample applications all the features that you can do, the things you can do with the map region. And there it is. And now look at this. You already, oh, sorry, let's zoom out. We have a clickable map, search and show, faceted search, so map with the facets, a circle draw, heat map, and even like things like 3D visualizations on top of the map. Many, many things. So I'll start with the first one, the simple one. This contains all the data of airports from the US. And I can zoom in a little bit. And I can click on each individual airport and hover over it, and we'll see where it is and the name. And if I then click on it, I will get this, well, tooltip, I should say, where you can see more information about it. It's really easy to create a maps region. So if we look at this page, The only thing you need to have is spatial data. It can be coordinates or a spatial SDO geometry column. We have only a map region, and the map region has 2 layers. So what you see when I run this page is that we have big airports and the small ones. And that's what defined here. So we have small airports and large airports, and they both have a query to get their data. This one as well. And then you can say, okay, this is my geometry column. You make it the column mapping, and you specify lots of other things. On the map itself, the map has also lots of attributes. Like you can change the background of the map and override it with the other ones we have. OpenStreetMap, a view of OpenStreetMap, then we have the Oracle World Map and the BI World Map. What are the options for end users, right? What can they do with the map itself? And the initial zooming position, stuff like that. And if you want to have custom SVGs, so much things available. Let's see another funny example. That's, I think, the circle search. I will zoom in a little bit so you will see what happens. Let's take here Memphis, for example. I have my circle tool, and if I draw a circle here, I get the results of the airports in this region. So there are only 2 extra small airports. There are so many things that you can do with this. The heat map is to show you where are most airports. If you want to have a report and on the side, the map, and then on the side a report, you can easily navigate to your results. It's a really powerful component, and I'm hoping we're gonna release this sample maps application soon, so you can try out all these features yourself. But finally, we have it, the maps region in Apex 21.1. Faceted search is on number 4. It's not a new feature, but we still improve it with little enhanced features. And as you can see, it's like any e-commerce website where you want to order something and you want to filter your results to get a smaller result set. And we enabled this not only for classic reports, but also for the calendar and for the new map region and for the cards region. And it's easily to create a faceted search page. I would suggest to use the wizard, because when you use the wizard, Apex will, once you will give it a table to base the faceted page on, and Apex will analyze that table and see which columns make sense to display them as facets. And that's easier than creating your own facet page, in my opinion. And that's what we do to analyze it. We use the Apex dictionary cache. And yeah, you filter the data. So let's look at this feature. Let me close the other one. Faceted search. And here I've used some, it's just a simple example. I'm using a classic report, and the classic report contains patients information. And I have one facet, which is always visible, but you can also say, I want extra facets to be hidden by default, but you can enable them. So if you want to see the year of birth, that's fine. And now they are there. Another funny thing is, if I select patients that are feeling good, here a conditional facet shows up. So example is you're in a web store and they sell everything, like they sell cars and clothes. Well, some facets only make sense in certain contexts, and that's why we have conditional facets. So I want people who feel good in Utah, and then I can say they should be older, born before 1940. As you see, we have different kinds of facets. So this is a range group. This is a checkbox group. And there is one more, which is hidden by default. And that's the sex, the gender. And I have to clear all to show you that it's a radio group. Another feature we have is that we show inline chart about the data distribution within the one facet. So yeah, already 4 components are now hooked up to faceted search, and I think whenever we introduce a new kind of region, we can add faceted search and make it work out of the box. The forms region on number 3, because I like it so much. I think it's such a game changer if you are just creating day-by-day applications in Apex. So it's introduced in 19.1. It's one of the older ones in this list, but it's still so powerful. Because if you are working with Apex a long time, you would have a page processing, and then it would expect that all your items belong to the same table. And that's how you used to submit your data and store your items to the columns, to your records. But with the introduction of the forms region, you can have the data of multiple tables in one page. And you can even say, okay, I have my employee data, my department data, but these items, you can put them in the employee region, because each item is connected to the forms region, but you can display it wherever you want. And out of the box, you get automatic row locking and lost update protection. Some things you really always want to use in your application to have a consistency of your data. And you can, as you see here, multiple form regions on a single page. And let's see how that works. I have my forms region here with my employee data and my department data. And there's just one save button. So if I go and edit this page, it will show me those 2 regions. I have my employee. It's based on a local table, the emp table, and then it will render all those items for me. The only thing I need to do manually is say the emp number is used as a primary key. And what I do as well is make sure that edit is enabled. So what you will then get is a page process, initialize the emp form, and when you submit the page, when you want to save your data, process the form. And I would suggest to always use this prevent lost updates, enable it. Same with row locking whenever you can, of course. And that's it. So what I can show you now, let's duplicate my page. And like I have 2 sessions at the same time going on. This one was already open. And this one I've just opened. So it's a new user changing data. And that works, right? And this one, I want to call him 2. But because the update just happened, I shouldn't be able. And luckily that works out of the box for you. That's called the lost update protection. Now to show you that I indeed can drag and drop these items, I will take the department name and location and put them right here in the employee region. Because the department name is bound, and let's see if I can find it here on the source, is bound to the form region department. So wherever you put it, it's still maintained. Okay, I hope it saves. Let me refresh my page. Not there yet. Yes, now it is. So let's change the values back. And the save should just run fine. And it did. So it's a big improvement for daily work with Apex. Then we're getting close already, number 2. And that's Apex and MLE. And MLE is the multilingual engine. And you can use that in Apex since 20.2, but only if you are on a 21 database. And there are just a few cloud regions that offer 21C right now. But I have set up a demo today. So it's cloud only option. When you'll be able to download 21C, you can use it anywhere. And what it means is you can run JavaScript inside the database. And that's the first start. So MLE allows you to run multiple languages in the database, like Python, for example. And we enabled JavaScript for the first release. And it's really easy to use from Apex. So let me show you this in a demo. I cannot use my own application. So instead, I'm using my cloud environment. And this is the one right here. I have to log in here as well. Sign in again. So I've created a 21C database, and I'm using a sample application to demonstrate MLE. And this is the application itself. This is built by my colleague, Stefan Dobre, to show you what is capable with MLE. First of all, you need to have JavaScript code that you want to execute. And for today, I'm using the QR code generation. It's a really simple demo. So whenever I have a URL, I can create on the server a QR code. So I have a blob there, and now I'm displaying it back to the browser. And how does this magic work? If you go and edit this page, you will see that in most places in your application, whenever you have code, let me zoom in a little bit, you can not only choose for PL SQL as a language, but also JavaScript. And Apex does behind the screen a lot for us. So it creates, MLE needs to have a context. So in JavaScript, that will be called your global scope. If you assign variables to your global scope, they stay there until the global scope is gone. And the context does the same thing. If you assign variables to it, it will stay there during the duration of this session, your database session. So here I'm calling my QR code module, and I'm simply specifying to use this as input to generate a QR code. And what I get as result is a base 46 encoded text. And that text I can pass back to my page item. But the funny thing is, because Apex has a context, so as soon as you have a database session, you will get that context and you can use it. So with each submit to the server, you get a new context. And we need to load this QR code module somewhere. So what Stefan has done is in this application, added the ability to upload modules being just text, and then load all that code into the Apex context. And that happens here in a shared component. You have an application process where we set up MLE anytime we have a new database session. And it loads all the modules. So it's a very powerful thing. You can do a lot with it, I think, because if you look at why would you want to use JavaScript inside the database? Probably for anything which is harder with PL SQL. And for sure, doing image manipulation or generating QR codes. If there are existing libraries in JavaScript, it's so easy to integrate them into your application. But PL SQL will never go away. It's going to be used forever, I hope. Just this opens a lot of doors, and there are hundreds and thousands of JavaScript libraries to do things. So you can really leverage the power of those in your applications. And then my favorite feature is the cards region. And I like it so much because it looks so good for your end users, and they are so flexible. We really, I think, did a good job there in terms of the what it can do. They're very flexible. So I like this example here where you see Slack integration. If you see all the components that single card has, it has an icon, it has a title, it has a subtitle, it has a badge, it has an image, and then you have the details here, another subtitle, and individual actions. So this is a button where I can click on and do something else. Really powerful stuff. And just by setting a few attributes, you can make it look so pretty. And we added this in 20.2, by the way. So we'll go to my next and last feature, the cards region. And this is another sample application that we make available for you to use to see how we've done it. And it has a few examples. I can show you the basic example is not very special. It just shows you the emp data and use the employee name as initials for an icon. And you have multiple styles. You want to display them like this or like this, that's all fine. Now the interesting stuff happens when you use images. So you can use images as from a blob column. And I need to wait a little bit until they're loaded, or make them look smaller. But the full-blown example is, for me, is the background image. And this is where we use the movie database. And it just looks so professional. Well, it's so easy to set this up. Again, we have lots of attributes. You have 3 actions I can add to a list, favorite, or share. And everything is there. It has the page navigation. How easy is it to set up? It's very easy if you look at this application. Because there's no coding involved. It's all declarative. This is my cards region. And the cards region is based on a REST data source, the movie database. That's it. And then we go to the attributes. And there we map the column into certain areas of the card. So the title is going to use the title column. The subtitle uses the release date. The body uses the overview column. And then we go to the icon. So the icon uses the poster image of the movie. And we reuse that same image also as the background image. No coding involved whatsoever, but it looks so amazing. Let me run it again. You can have card actions. So a card can be fully clickable, very convenient in some cases. Or you have conditional actions, which means you apply multiple actions in your cards regions, but only if certain conditions are met. And I talked about this one before, template directives. And this is the place where they shine, let's say. So some people have tags and then you want to show them, but other people don't have these tags. And let's see how they've done it in this page. So we'll go and edit this region. So I have here my media image cards region. And here you will see in the body, I'm using this expression language, these template directives. If there are any tags at all, then I want to loop over them. And because it's in one column and it's multiple tags are stored in one single value, so I split them by using the comma as separator and then use that value of the tag in my column. But if there are no tags, then it should render absolutely nothing. And if you want to know more about these HTML expressions, there's a little detail. No, you have to go to our documentation or to the blog post by John Snyders. But I think, yeah, the cards region is my favorite feature of the last 3 years, I would say. So that's my top 10. That's it. I hope you like them as much as I do, and I'm really looking forward to your reactions once we release 21.1 and really in the GA. That's it. Time for questions.
Thank you very much, Menno. Do we have a date that you know that or hope that 21 will be released?
Soon.
I tried to trick you, but it didn't work. Okay, I understand.
Very soon then. Maybe.
I understand. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing your top 10 features of Apex with us. We do have questions. I read them through, so I will. You can read also the questions, I think, but I will read them to the public. The first question from Hildo: is this download feature available in 21 as well? I mean the Apex exec package.
That was the download of Excel files, I guess. That's new in 20.2, not in 20.1.
Okay. Yeah, the questions I see are in chronology order. So the first question is the first part of your presentations. The second question, if we want to validate data before final loading into the table, is it possible?
Yeah, there are a few options you can do. I didn't show you at all. So if I go to my data load definition, well, you could store it into a collection and then process it manually if you want. But if you need other solution, if you go to my data load definition of my emp table, I hope it opens up. Then in my data profile, for each column, I can add some kind of rules. So let's take the employee name, for example. I can add a transformation rule. So I can trim the data or replace something, regular expression replacing, simple stuff. But that's there. And the other option is to upload it into a collection and then process that collection yourself and append or merge it to your table. So there are a few options.
Okay, thank you. The next question from Roel. From which version is the data loading available as you showed?
This is 21.1, brand new.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Question from CM. The customer wants to do some validation and give some message to the user before final submitting, or the data should be corrected.
I think that's the same question. Yeah, I think those questions are connected, right? Where you want to validate the data being uploaded.
Yeah. Okay. Another question from Hildo: is spatial a paid option or a free option?
Karsten knows all about it, but I'm pretty sure parts of it are free. And then if you want to do advanced things, those are paid. But
it's like database options that you need to pay for.
Yeah, but the standard spatial stuff is available anyway. The SDO geometry column type you can use. But if you want to do advanced things, then there are paid options. But the stuff we did here, showing things on a map, that should be available to everyone. But okay, Karsten knows this for.
Yeah, and Alex Nuiten in the chat mentions that the spatial should be free.
Okay, yes, perfect.
This used to be a locator only, but not anymore, he answers in the chat. Thank you, Alex, for that. Then a question from Marco. Are detailed maps of other counties than the US available? For the Netherlands, a map with the provinces, for example?
Well, the background map itself is, it shows itself really nicely. I can show you the maps region again. I don't think I have it open right now. So there's a difference between the background tiles, let's say, and what you put as pointers on the map. So here, if I zoom into the Netherlands, and I can find Qualogy office, I guess, then you will see that the map itself is pretty detailed. Here I see Rijswijk, and you will get all the street names and everything. So all that data is included. But if you want to show provinces as like a polygon on your map, then you will need that data from somewhere. But there are lots of open data sets available from Cadastre, for example.
Okay. Thank you. Next question from Siam. Related to the map, can we highlight a small portion of the city if we have geometry data?
Yes, I guess so. You can specify the zoom level. So you can zoom into this by default. And if you want to show, yes, so you can always zoom into that data. Last time I had an example where I showed all the Dutch railway stations on the map.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Another question from Siam. How to enable the data table at the top of a bar chart?
Ooh. In the faceted search, that's a good question. I haven't looked into this too much because I'm not using it on a day-to-day basis, but I guess here you want to have like a label. I'm not sure. That's something I have to ask John Snyder.
Okay. Thank you. Question from Alex Nuiten. Is there a way to format the text in the body of a card region, like including line breaks or bold text?
There should be. Let's see here. I have my card. It's an HTML expression, so you can put in whatever you want, and you can use that template directives. But if you have H2 or you make this strong or bold or a line break, that should work if you use the HTML expression. But then you have to enable, in this case, the advanced formatting. So by default, it's just your column value. If you enable advanced formatting, you can add your HTML expression.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Klee. Data loading into a view instead of a table. What if data is not accepted?
Loading data into a view, yeah, you will get errors, so you can define what you want to do with your errors anyway. This is my data load definition. There are 3 types of error handling. You can just stop, or you can say, I'm ignoring the ones that are with an error. You can log it into a collection, or there's this special option, log it into an error log. And that's Oracle has error tables. You can define them. If you open up this help text, you can use the dbms error log package, create error log, and it will create an error table for a specified table name. So there are a few options how you can deal with errors. Okay,
thank you. And then the last question that is in the Q&A, how difficult is it to upgrade from 19x to 21.1?
It should be really simple. So it always depends. Upgrades in general, only if you have lots of customizations, then you will need to see if it all still works. But we as an Apex team always make sure that that you can upgrade without any issues. For instance, the date picker is new in 21.1, but the old date picker and the new date picker, they don't. You cannot just upgrade them without user intervention. So these are things you have to upgrade manually if you want to use the new functionality, but we will always include those legacy components so your application won't break.
Okay, thank you. And then another final question, multiple form regions or on single page, but they cannot be based on the same table, right? Then row initialization only get data from the first form.
I'm not sure. I think in theory it should work if I have two, because they are not connected to each other at all. I think it should work. The only thing is that you have then duplicates form item names, so you will have to give each one a new name. But I will have to run a test, but in theory it should just work fine.
Okay, good. Thank you, Menno. Thank you very much.
Thank
Then
you.
I think we answered almost all the questions. Thank you, attendees, for joining us in this session, and I hope to see you next time. Have a nice day.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.